Shiki was just a typical troublemaker who'd recently been kicked out of school, but after some shady stranger attacks him and takes out his old man, he discovers he's actually got demon blood pumping through his veins and decides he's gonna master these powers to get his bloody payback. Many years ago, a brutal demon race known as Oni roamed Japan, wrecking everything and slaughtering folks whenever they felt like it. Nobody had the guts to oppose them until one day a fearless warrior named Momotarou stepped up as mankind's hero. He stormed the Oni stronghold and wiped out thousands of them. But that was just the opening battle of a long, drawn-out war between Momotarou and the Oni that still rages on today. Totally clueless about how this old-ass legend connects to his fate, a teenager named Shiki is busy cleaning his collection of firearms while chatting casually with a friend on the phone. He's joking about recently getting booted from school after another brawl, saying he honestly doesn't give a damn since he was tired of looking at his classmates' ugly mugs every single day. Just then, his foster dad, Tsuyoshi, storms in and smacks him upside the head, demanding to know why he got himself kicked out again. Shiki tells him to get lost, and when Tsuyoshi tries smacking him again for being an ungrateful little punk, Shiki swiftly ducks it this time. Tsuyoshi immediately grills Shiki about why there are guns lying all around, pointing out sarcastically that they're running a liquor store here, not some back alley arms dealership. Shiki fires back at him, mocking the pathetic excuse of a liquor store that's basically failing because nobody's buying booze from him anymore. Tsuyoshi doesn't back down, roasting Shiki right back for acting like he's hot stuff despite being expelled. Shiki takes that insult to heart, snapping back coldly that he'll never become a deadbeat like Tsuyoshi and is honestly glad they aren't blood-related. That remark hits Tsuyoshi hard, visibly hurting him, but he quietly leaves after getting a work call downstairs. As Tsuyoshi heads out for a delivery, Shiki lets out a frustrated sigh, wishing some wealthy dude had adopted him instead. He decides to get some target practice in to clear his mind, but an unexpected explosion outside startles him. He rushes out to check what's going on, only to find the street covered in thick fog, blinding him completely. Suddenly, an eerie black mist blasts from the darkness, knocking Shiki flat on his back. Before he can react, the mist coils around his leg, violently dragging him outside and tossing him roughly onto the pavement. As Shiki struggles to his feet, completely baffled by whatever the hell just went down, a sinister-looking old guy dressed completely in white shows up, clearly intent on attacking him. But just in the nick of time, Tsuyoshi returns in his car, smashing directly into the creepy attacker, urgently yelling at Shiki to jump in, like a typical Hollywood movie. He hits the gas and speeds off like crazy, frantically saying their only chance now is to flee the country altogether. Shiki, however, hasn't even begun to process the insanity he's just witnessed. He freaks out and demands to know how his old man could casually run over someone like that, but Tsuyoshi insists that the guy isn't dead yet, and they absolutely have to get as far away from him as possible. Clearly distressed, Tsuyoshi tells Shiki to shut up and listen closely, since they don't have much time left. He quickly reveals that Shiki is actually an Oni descendant, and the psychopath who just attacked them is a descendant of Momotarou. Shiki snaps, telling Tsuyoshi this is no damn time for jokes, but his dad insists he's dead serious. Before Shiki can respond, a blade made of black mist suddenly pierces straight through the car's roof, narrowly missing Tsuyoshi as he swerves out of the way. It's clear the freaky attacker has caught up as the windows suddenly get completely shrouded in dense black fog, leaving them blind. Tsuyoshi slams the brakes near an abandoned warehouse and leaps out, urgently telling Shiki they need to hide right away. Just as they clear the car, it explodes violently behind them and Tsuyoshi spins around only to find Shiki nowhere in sight. Fortunately, he spots a trail of black mist snaking toward the warehouse and immediately knows his son was dragged inside. In the darkness of the warehouse, Shiki finds himself trapped helplessly in a gigantic web formed from the strange mist, with the terrifying man named Samedare standing ominously before him. Samedare coldly tells Shiki that the Oni blood running through him makes him nothing more than vermin, and exterminating vermin like him is precisely what the Momotarou agency does. Shiki can barely register the fact that Samedare somehow survived being hit by a freaking car when suddenly Tsuyoshi charges in, telling Shiki that the Momotarou fairy tale is actually real. He explains rapidly that for centuries, the descendants of Momotarou and Oni have been locked in an endless struggle through generations. Eventually, the Momotarou bloodlines banded together to form the powerful Momotarou agency, gaining the upper hand and forcing the Oni descendants to live secretly among humans just to survive. Shiki remains completely lost by all this craziness, but Tsuyoshi confidently steps forward, telling his son to relax and let daddy handle this shit. Samedare immediately summons two blades made entirely out of black mist, prompting Tsuyoshi to unleash an identical power in defense. Both men charge forward, blades clashing fiercely, causing an intense shockwave. Tsuyoshi somehow manages to shove Samedare backward, but Samadare mocks him, remarking how pathetically weak he's become compared to the old days. Samadare reveals that the Black Mist is an exclusive power belonging solely to the Momotarou descendants, further disclosing that Tsuyoshi was once his senior within the Momotarou agency. Shiki is stunned by the realization that his father carries Momotarou blood, but Tsuyoshi insists he's long since buried those memories. Samadare coldly questions if he's also forgotten how dangerous the Oni truly are, declaring Tsuyoshi must be eliminated as punishment for sheltering an Oni. Tsuyoshi angrily launches the first strike, but the two men quickly find themselves evenly matched. Shiki stands helplessly, his mind blown by their brutal fight, as Samadare demands Tsuyoshi explain why he's protecting a monster whose very existence brings destruction. Tsuyoshi tells him to shut his mouth and launches a fierce attack, but Samadare's speed greatly surpasses Tsuyoshi's expectations. Samadare effortlessly evades and counters with a lightning-fast combo, severely wounding Tsuyoshi and knocking him out. Shiki's heart breaks as he watches his dad collapse and bleed, causing him to furiously swear he'll end Samadare. Samadare merely scoffs, telling Shiki he'll join his father in hell soon enough. Right then, Tsuyoshi weakly grabs Samadare's foot. Samadare asks him incredulously why he's risking everything just to protect an Oni. Tsuyoshi painfully replies that he doesn't need any damn reason to protect his own son. He insists that Shiki hasn't harmed anyone yet, making it unjust to condemn him purely for carrying Oni blood. Samadare ignores him, conjuring another sword from Black Mist to end Tsuyoshi once and for all. Watching this pushes Shiki's rage beyond its breaking point. His eyes blaze blood red as he vows to annihilate the bastard who's trying to murder his dad, causing his dormant demonic powers to erupt. Blood begins pouring from every pore on his face, and his Oni horns burst violently through his skull. Shiki screams at Samadare that he's going to kill him, and as Samadare turns to look, he's shocked to see Shiki no longer trapped in the web. Immediately, several guns shaped from blood appear beside his face, but Samadare narrowly blocks every shot thanks to his sharp reflexes. Yet Shiki has already vanished from the spot, and while Samadare frantically tries to locate him, drops of blood fall from above, revealing Shiki suspended from the ceiling like some twisted Spider-Man in a Venom suit. Witnessing Shiki's grotesque blood-drenched form, Samadare recognizes that Shiki's Oni powers have fully awakened, allowing him to control his own blood as a weapon. Though that's not even the most frightening part of fighting an Oni. In a heartbeat, Shiki lunges at him, fiercely pushing Samadare back with devastating blows. Samadare quickly turns the tables, slicing off Shiki's arm, but Shiki leaps back, casually regenerating his limb in seconds. Shiki howls like a psychopath, and Samadare breaks into a nervous sweat, realizing this fight is going downhill fast. Shiki then shapes his blood into countless deadly firearms, forcing Samadare to desperately utilize every ounce of his speed and skill just to deflect the storm of bullets. Suddenly, Shiki fires a literal freaking missile, forcing Samadare to dodge by the skin of his teeth as the missile detonates violently behind him. Samadare desperately tries escaping Shiki's brutal rampage, throwing his sword in a last-ditch attempt to end the fight. But it's nowhere near enough, and Shiki quickly closes the gap and kicks his old ass away. Samadare is now too exhausted and wounded to dodge effectively, and Shiki stomps on his face, ruthlessly unleashing an entire army's worth of ammunition on him. Yet somehow, Samadare barely manages to survive, though he's gravely injured. He curses Shiki bitterly, but then Shiki suddenly collapses and the blood weapons shatter instantly. His demonic transformation vanishes, and staring at his blood-soaked hands, Shiki's sanity snaps, unable to comprehend what the hell just happened. Samadare immediately recognizes this as the usual breakdown people have when they unlock their Oni abilities for the very first time. Gathering the last ounce of strength he has, he shapes another Black Mist blade, ready to finish what he started. But right as he's about to plunge the blade into Shiki, Tsuyoshi leaps between them, willingly sacrificing himself to protect his son. Samadare's stunned demands to know why he'd risk his life for a kid who just turned into such a terrifying monster. Tsuyoshi simply recalls the little kid who brought him happiness and softly tells his former comrade that even though it was brief, he enjoyed the feeling of being a proud father. At that moment, civilians rush around the warehouse after hearing the blast, calling emergency responders, forcing Samadare to reluctantly retreat. Turning himself into Black Mist, he quickly vanishes, leaving Tsuyoshi mortally wounded and Shiki completely lost and terrified. Shiki freaks out and desperately tells his dad that he'll get medical help right away, but Tsuyoshi gently stops him, knowing he's already finished, asking instead for just one last moment to speak with his son before he goes. Tsuyoshi explains that he hid the truth about Shiki's Oni blood because admitting it would mean telling him about the cruel reality that people would try to kill him. Now, all he can ask of Shiki is to grow strong enough to defeat both Oni and Momotarou so he can finally have a life of freedom and happiness. But Shiki screams at him to shut up, refusing to accept it's over. Frantically pulling Tsuyoshi toward the exit, he yells that they'll talk once he gets treated, but Tsuyoshi only manages one last gentle smile before he finally passes away. As his dad's lifeless body hits the ground, Shiki shakes him desperately, begging him to open his eyes because he still hasn't had the chance to apologize for all the horrible stuff he spat at him earlier that morning, but it's already too late. Tsuyoshi's already dead. So Shiki just sits there, completely shattered, and quietly breaks down over his dad's motionless body. Moments later, some weird guy riding roller skates casually appears out of nowhere, calmly mentioning that Shiki can't stay there anymore, because soon the place will be swarming with witnesses. Shiki freaks out at the sudden intrusion, racing himself for another battle. But before he can even fully turn around, the dude correct chops him neatly in the neck, knocking him out cold in a single blow. It takes some serious skill to sneak up on anyone while skating, so Shiki honestly never stood a chance to begin with. Elsewhere, the higher-ups at the Momotarou agency are losing their collective shit because they've just learned about Samadere's botched assassination attempt on Shiki, and now they're all questioning if he's gotten rusty or something. Still, given the circumstances, they understand his retreat. They absolutely can't risk the public discovering the agency's existence. But they also refuse to allow the Oni to become common knowledge either, meaning they fully intend to get rid of Shiki the moment he's back in their crosshairs. Unfortunately for them, that's basically impossible at this point, because once Shiki got knocked unconscious, he was immediately shipped off to some distant island in the middle of freaking nowhere. The plan now is to toss Shiki into a school jam-packed with half-Oni teens just like him, so he can properly master his abilities. But before that though, Naito's got to run him through a brutal evaluation to see whether Shiki's even worth the trouble, and judging by how he looks now, it's definitely not gonna be a pleasant ride. While knocked out cold, Shiki dreams of carefree times spent messing around at the park under his dad's protective gaze. But suddenly, his peaceful dream twists into a nightmare as Tsuyoshi falls dead at Samadere's hands. Shiki jolts awake, heart racing, to find himself staring into Samadere's blood-red eyes. But when he blinks, Samadere vanishes, leaving him disoriented as he realizes he's gagged and tightly bound to a chair in a massive empty hall. Right behind him, the roller skating weirdo who kidnapped him is casually showing off, doing one-handed push-ups balanced on an umbrella, and quickly flips upright the second he notices Shiki's awake. The flashy guy introduces himself as Naito, a fellow Oni, while effortlessly popping out his own demonic horns. Still bewildered and dizzy, Shiki struggles to make sense of what's happening, barely absorbing Naito's overly energetic introduction. Naito refuses to disclose their current location but assures Shiki that Tsuyoshi's body has been safely retrieved and respectfully stored elsewhere, explaining he brought Shiki here for both evaluation and his own protection. Without warning, Naito smoothly glides to a nearby whiteboard, swiftly rolling it right in front of Shiki before flexing about how insanely efficient roller skates are compared to just plain walking. Then he kicks off an explanation about the Momotarou agency, reminding Shiki that he's already encountered one of their guys who can manipulate black mist as a weapon. Naito adds that the Momotarou agency hunts down Oni, so naturally the Oni created their own agency in response. His specific job is scooping up freshly awakened Oni, like Shiki, and bringing them somewhere safe to determine if they're qualified enough to join the Oni's side. After wrapping up his speedy explanation, Naito wheels the whiteboard back to its original position, then finally removes Shiki's gag to start the interview. As soon as the gag is off, Shiki instantly flips out, angrily demanding to be untied. He starts hurling insults and threats, warning Naito he'll pay dearly if he's done anything disrespectful to his dad's remains, and Naito immediately docks points from Shiki's non-existent evaluation score. He scolds Shiki harshly for being too stupid to understand what safe and sound meant, since he literally explained it minutes ago. Enraged, Shiki shoots back that there's no way he's trusting a shady show-off like Naito anyway, and Naito, utterly unsurprised, promptly subtracts even more points each time Shiki curses or demands to be untied, bluntly suggesting he better cooperate if he actually wants to pass the test. Shiki couldn't care less about any stupid evaluation, but he's desperate enough to escape to try reining in his temper, only he's terrible at controlling it, prompting Naito to flatly tell him to stop giving him that creepy death glare. Shiki completely loses it after hearing that, and Naito immediately decides that normal evaluation methods aren't gonna cut it with a psycho like him. He swiftly pulls off his tie, and before Shiki can even figure out what's happening, Naito wraps it around his neck and begins choking him with everything he's got. Shiki freaks out, gasping desperately for air as Naito calmly explains that a creature reveals its real self right before it dies, and that's exactly what he's looking for. Shiki struggles like crazy, giving everything he's got to break free, but no matter how hard he tries, he can't escape Naito's brutal hold, even as blood starts pouring uncontrollably from his eyes, ears, and nose. Eventually, Shiki blacks out, leaving Naito thoroughly disappointed, but then Shiki's spilled blood suddenly springs to life, morphing into razor-sharp spikes that shoot straight at Naito, who manages to dodge them effortlessly. Then out of nowhere, Naito notices a massive blood-formed Gatling gun pointed straight at his face, and standing right behind it is Shiki, completely lost in his berserker mode. Shiki blasts away mercilessly at Naito, only stopping after he's satisfied, but none of his shots even graze the edgy guy who's casually shielded himself using his umbrella coated with blood. Naito casually takes away 100 points from Shiki's evaluation for being utterly clueless about using his Oni powers, then decides to show him exactly how it's done, knowing Shiki won't remember a single thing afterward. Shiki launches himself forward again, but Naito is more than ready, and moments later, Shiki wakes up lying defeated on the floor. He's dazed and confused, unable to piece together what just went down, but one glance at his bloodstained hands is enough to send him spiraling into panic, realizing that he went berserk again. Naito sits calmly on top of him, explaining matter-of-factly that it's normal for his memories to be foggy, since Oni lose all sense of reason in berserk mode. The entire hall around them is trashed beyond recognition thanks to their battle, and Shiki irritably yells at Naito to quit lecturing when he's clearly been using his own blood as a weapon too. Without hesitation, Naito casually dissipates his blood umbrella and reminds Shiki he's never once lost control, since unlike him, he actually knows how to handle his powers properly. He then coldly announces that there's nothing left to discuss because Shiki is officially disqualified from joining the Oni agency. Shiki's still utterly clueless about everything happening around him, but one thing is painfully obvious to him. Naito is insanely powerful. With his pride in shambles, Shiki swallows it all down and desperately begs Naito to take him on as his disciple, determined to get stronger so he can avenge his father's death. Naito instantly shoots down his request, coldly telling Shiki that reckless idiots like him who charge headfirst without thinking are always the first to bite the dust. He calls him a worthless disgrace who can't control his powers or his damn temper, and Shiki nearly bursts a vein trying to keep his anger in check. Naito then calmly states it's finally time to get rid of Shiki, because an Oni who goes berserk in battle is nothing but trouble. He activates his special ring to slice open his thumb, causing blood to drip freely. Instantly, he transforms the blood into an umbrella, and Shiki suddenly gets an idea on how he might force this stubborn bastard to reconsider. He swiftly moves back out of Naito's attack range, and sprints towards him, grinding his fist along the floor until it bleeds profusely. Naito then quickly reshapes his umbrella into a spike-covered shield that can counter any close-range strike, carefully calculating every possible move Shiki might pull. At the last second, Shiki leaps upward, a move already accounted for in Naito's calculations, but then unexpectedly uses the spikes as a platform, launching himself sideways and aiming a blood-crafted handgun right in Naito's face. Shiki concentrates all his remaining strength into one powerful shot, and the recoil alone sends him tumbling backwards. He's stunned, thinking he finally landed a clean hit on Naito, but nope, turns out he didn't even scratch him. Naito casually intercepts the blood bullet with one finger and crushes it effortlessly. He gives Shiki zero credit for this attack, pointing out that he was halfway to losing control and entering berserker mode just to pull it off. Seeing Shiki begin to slip into madness again, Naito decides to end things with his ultimate technique. He encloses himself inside a protective cage of blood and conjures archers from his own blood, aiming their bows and waiting for his command. However, noticing that Shiki is desperately fighting his berserker impulses and finally gaining control over his own power, Naito abruptly cancels his finishing move. Shiki feels proud as hell that he managed to control himself, but quickly collapses onto the floor from total exhaustion. Naito stands there, utterly shocked that Shiki not only kept his abilities under control but also suppressed his berserker side, a feat most Oni can't pull off. He demands to know how the hell Shiki did it, but Shiki smugly replies he'll spill the beans only if Naito accepts him as his disciple. Naito reluctantly says he'll consider it, which Shiki instantly takes as a yes. Shiki explains that when Naito started lecturing about controlling blood, he didn't understand a single damn thing. But the moment he saw him slice his thumb open and use blood to create weapons, something finally clicked in his brain. He figured since they're both Oni, he could simply copy whatever crazy thing Naito did, and shockingly it actually worked. Shiki admits he didn't really grasp the finer points, he just let his arm bleed and mentally screamed at it to turn into a weapon. Still ecstatic that his desperate gamble actually paid off, Shiki smugly asks Naito what he thinks about that move. Naito thinks Shiki's explanation is total nonsense because things just don't work like that. Based on his experience, reckless, hot-headed teens like Shiki usually struggle badly with controlling their blood, while calm and collected folks like himself have the easiest time mastering their abilities. He realizes Shiki is the type who doesn't follow logic or even give in fully to his berserker side, Instead, he somehow bullies his power into submission through sheer instinct and rage. It's an incredibly rough technique, but it could potentially unleash a massive burst of strength. As he puzzles over what the hell to do with this bizarre kid, Shiki suddenly interrupts him, declaring that he desperately needs power to get revenge for his dad and kill the bastard responsible. He promises Naito that if he accepts him as his underling and trains him, he'll definitely become useful. But Naito immediately shoots down the suggestion. He transforms his umbrella into a sharp spear, bluntly telling Shiki that reckless morons like him are a danger to everyone around them, especially considering Shiki didn't even know controlling his blood was possible and simply gambled on it. He firmly states he can't accept someone like him as a mere underling, and then acts as if he's about to stab Shiki with a spear, but instead slams it into the floor right beside his head. He announces he won't be accepting Shiki as an underling, but rather as his student, which completely baffles Shiki, because he genuinely sees no difference between the two. Naito explains that Shiki barely passed the test, but he'll give him a chance to prove his worth. Shiki is beyond confused by all of this, so Naito decides he'll start with the basics. He explains that right now they're on an island known as Hell's Doorstep, formerly called Onigashima. It's the legendary place where the original Momotarou slaughtered countless Oni, but now it serves as a refuge where Oni can live safely. At the heart of the island lies Rakshasa Academy, a military-style school specifically designed to train Oni for their war against the Momotarou agency. Shiki freaks out upon discovering he's stuck on a freaking island, but Naito casually pokes him in the cheek, saying that's literally the least important detail right now. What's actually important is that Rakshasa Academy will teach him everything from standard education and Oni blood control to combat techniques and the historical feud between Oni and Momotarou. Naito then reveals he's going to be Shiki's homeroom teacher and proceeds to bombard him with even more details about academy life, but it's all way too much for Shiki's tiny brain to handle. He honestly doesn't care about any of that shit. The only thing on his mind is whether he'll become strong enough to avenge his dad. Naito refuses to make any guarantees, but he warns him bluntly that if he can't become powerful enough to take on the Momotarou agency, he'll be kicked out of the school immediately. After a while, Shiki puts on his new uniform, hyped up about starting fresh at a totally unique kind of school, but Naito bluntly warns him that there are others who've passed this year, and frankly, he's probably the weakest of the bunch. Suddenly, Shiki remembers his dad and anxiously asks Naito where they took his body. Naito casually tells him they're keeping it safe at the morgue because they figured Shiki would want to handle the funeral himself according to whatever beliefs he had. Thinking about his dad's passing makes Shiki go quiet for a moment, but Naito interrupts his gloomy mood, calling him a dumbass and telling him that moping around won't get him anywhere. Instead, he should channel all his energy into getting stronger so he can get his vengeance. Shiki blurts out that Naito's surprisingly a decent guy after all, catching the edgelord completely off guard and embarrassing the hell out of him. Flustered, Naito quickly skates away, yelling back that Shiki better hurry his ass up because if he reaches the classroom after him, he'll be instantly expelled. Shiki somehow manages to keep pace, and as he starts contemplating how he can enter the room to maximize his badass entrance, Naito abruptly kicks him through the classroom door instead. Shiki awkwardly realizes he's just racked up some major embarrassment points with that pathetic introduction and sheepishly asks the mysterious masked kid named Jin nearby if he's got a tissue for his bloody nose. Jin, however, turns out to be an even bigger edgelord than their teacher, coldly brushing Shiki off and telling him not to talk to him. Feeling instantly pissed off by Jin's attitude, Shiki mockingly calls him out for not even having horns yet. Jin silently manifests his horns right on cue, casually remarking that only clueless nudes who can't control themselves flaunt their horns all the damn time. This remark accidentally triggers another student, a hot-tempered kid named Mikari, who clearly can't manage to hide his own horns. The tension in the classroom spikes instantly, with Shiki aggressively invading Jin's personal space. But just as the fight's about to break out, Naito suddenly appears behind them in an instant, and somehow, Shiki ends up seated right next to Jin before he even realizes what happened. Jin's equally stunned, but Naito's in no mood to entertain the kid's confusion. Instead, he announces that their first assignment will be an intense game of tag. He quickly escorts all the students out into a nearby forest, explaining they'll have exactly 1 hour to make it back to campus without getting caught by him. Naito then coldly announces that whoever fails to get back to campus in the given time will be kicked out immediately, ignoring Shiki's protests. Next, he casually mentions that they're free to unleash their Oni abilities, though he'll only resort to using his powers if someone goes bloody berserk. Jin cockily states that he might accidentally end up killing Naito if he holds back his strength, but Naito simply shrugs, telling the class that if any of them manage to kill him, they'll instantly graduate and get their choice of combat units to take the fight straight to the Momotarou agency. He sternly adds that the purpose of their school is preparing them for real-world threats, and every moment here will be designed to push their limits. He asks everyone if they're ready, and Shiki loudly declares he'll do whatever it takes to pass all of Naito's insane tests. Naito suddenly announces another twist, whipping out two weird-looking balls and explaining that every student needs to have a ball in their possession when they reach the academy grounds to pass. Before they can even react, he chucks both balls deep into the restricted area. The students panic, assuming they'll have to battle it out, but Naito smirks, revealing they're actually splitting into teams. Shiki finds himself teamed up with Jin, the edgy masked guy, and the shy pink-haired girl named Homer. On another team are Ikari, the loudmouthed delinquent, paired with Juji, the brainy type. Finally, there's Rokuro, visibly shaking from nerves, and Kuina, who clearly believes she's leagues ahead of everyone here. Naito tells them he'll give them a 15-minute head start before hunting them down, but Shiki loudly objects, complaining about getting stuck with masking a creep. Naito immediately threatens to kick him out if he can't manage basic teamwork, forcing Shiki to quickly shut up and reconsider. Homer then cautiously walks over to introduce herself, instantly overwhelming Shiki, who has never interacted with a girl before. His heart races like crazy, and he blurts out confidently that he'll protect her no matter what. She instantly blushes, stammering nervously that he doesn't need to go so far as she just doesn't want to be dead weight. Next, Homer nervously approaches Jin, who completely ignores her existence, radiating peak Andrew Tate vibes. Immediately overwhelmed by insecurity, Homer breaks down sobbing, apologizing repeatedly for even trying to speak to him. Shiki leaps in, pissed that Jin hurt her feelings, and quickly comforts her by insisting she shouldn't ruin her adorable face with tears. He then swivels back, shouting insults at Jin, but Jin calmly tells him to stop being such a pathetic simp. Naito quickly interrupts their squabble, urging them to hurry up because time's ticking. Jin bolts straight into the restrictive forest with Shiki hot on his heels. Homer stands there nervously looking around until finally deciding she better run after them before things get even worse. Meanwhile, Jin swiftly leaps from branch to branch like some edgy Naruto character, fantasizing about taking down Naito, earning an instant graduation, and securing a spot in an elite squad. He's determined to get another shot facing his mortal enemy, but his edgy inner monologue is rudely interrupted when Shiki suddenly lunges at him from behind. Irritated, Jin demands to know what the hell has gotten into him, so Shiki grins cockily, replying he's here to settle things once and for all and prove he's definitely stronger. Jin's totally ready for the showdown and dramatically removes his mask, showing off some seriously nasty scars running around his mouth. Shiki's instantly grossed out but tries to brush it off, claiming that only weak-ass losers bother showing off battle wounds. Jin doesn't even react to his insults, instead calmly slipping off his gloves to reveal his hands are stitched up just as badly as his face. Without hesitating, he rips out one of the stitches, releasing blood that rapidly turns into spinning circular saws. Shiki stares in shock, internally panicking that the Chainsaw Man author is definitely gonna sue them for plagiarism. Jin coldly tells him to quit wasting time, scram if he's chicken, but Shiki firmly replies that running away now would mean he'd never avenge his dad's death. Jin's caught off guard by the sudden confession but quickly turns icy cold, muttering that they'll never see eye to eye. Shiki fires back that he has zero interest in understanding someone like him anyway, and then aggressively bites his thumb, hoping his blood will turn into a gun. But nothing happens, and he freaks out, clueless about how he triggered it last time. Realizing he has no other choice, Shiki grabs a random stick and charges forward, but it quickly becomes obvious he's hopelessly outmatched as Jin effortlessly slices through entire trees with his terrifying chainsaw blades. At the same time, Homer nervously wanders around looking for the boys, but she freezes when she hears the loud crashes of trees collapsing nearby. Her anxiety instantly skyrockets, convinced she's not cut out for this place at all. But then she suddenly remembers Shiki calling her cute earlier, boosting her confidence just enough to keep looking, totally unaware that she's standing mere feet away from one of the balls they're supposed to find. At the same moment, Shiki's desperately trying to go toe-to-toe with Jin using nothing but his fists. Jin doesn't even bother activating his chainsaw powers, effortlessly beating Shiki down without breaking a sweat. Shiki can't stop wondering how Jin can control his powers so naturally, eventually realizing Jin's abilities must be completely different from his own and Naito's. Distracted by his thoughts, he leaves an opening, and Jin instantly capitalizes, dropping Shiki flat on the ground with a single punch. Frustrated and humiliated, Shiki lies there for a moment, and Jin calmly starts walking away, figuring the pathetic fight's finally over. But just then, Shiki stubbornly rises back to his feet, declaring that he's not finished yet. Jin, now royally pissed off, sends a chainsaw whizzing straight at Shiki, and at that exact second, Homer cluelessly walks right into the line of fire. Thanks to her legendary lack of survival instincts, she doesn't even realize the danger she's in. Shiki panics like hell when he sees her, but thankfully manages to shove her out of harm's way at the last second, even though he takes a minor hit in the process. Quickly scrambling off home air, Shiki angrily demands Jin apologize to her, but Jin coldly retorts it would have been her own dumb fault if his weak attack actually killed her. That pushes Shiki's rage to a new level, but suddenly he hears Homer chanting a non-stop apology, almost like she's stuck in some kind of creepy trance. He tries assuring her none of it was her fault, but suddenly blood starts pouring from Homer's nose, pooling on the ground until it forms into a massive human-shaped figure. Jin and Shiki stare wide-eyed in shock, wondering if they're trapped in an Attack on Titan crossover episode. Homer desperately tells them to run because her female Titan is going to kill everyone, and as soon as she says that, the Blood Titan slams her fist into the ground with explosive force, with Shiki just barely dodging the blow. Jin, being Jin, charges straight at the female Titan, attacking her with his chainsaws, but the blades hardly scratch her massive body. Shiki then yells at Homer, asking if she can make that thing stop, but she tearfully apologizes, saying she can't control it. Losing too much blood, she collapses and Shiki rushes forward to grab her, determined to save her. But the next moment, he's stunned to see the female Titan stepping in to protect Homer. Even Jin's baffled, wondering if Homer's blood somehow has a mind of its own. Without warning, the female Titan suddenly unleashes a devastating blood attack from its mouth. Jin quickly hides behind a rock, but Shiki takes the full force of the bloody assault head-on. Through her tears, Homer begs the Titan, calling her elder sister, to stop attacking. Shiki gets up, utterly confused about what she means, and Homer again weakly pleads with him to run away. Shiki stubbornly refuses, yelling that if he leaves her now, she'll bleed out and die, and there's no way he's letting another person die right before his eyes. Just then, the female Titan lets out a terrifying roar, unleashing a shockwave powerful enough to reach all the other students outside the forest. Naito calmly watches the chaos unfold from the treetops, deciding to sit back for now and see if Shiki and Jin can handle Homer's insane blood release powers before stepping in himself. Back at the battle zone, Shiki desperately tries to injure himself to summon his blood into a weapon, but nothing happens. The female Titan lunges straight at him, forcing him to dodge. But then the giant decides to pull the epic move that killed Erwin Smith, grabbing a handful of rocks from the ground and launching them at deadly speed. Shiki takes a direct hit and gets thrown aside like a ragdoll, but the thing that hurts even worse than the blow itself is how pathetically weak he's become. He's never lost a fight before, and now he's just a helpless kid getting tossed around. Frustrated tears stream down his face, but then Jin appears out of nowhere, stepping into the fray and coldly telling him to go home if he's gonna whine like a little kid. Angry, Shiki snaps back that he was just sweating from his eyeballs, but Jin couldn't care less. Jin quickly slices open his old wounds, this time manifesting two completely different chainsaws, one on each arm. Even though he's clearly still feeling the pain from the female Titan's earlier attack, Jin is more determined than ever to win any fight thrown his way. From his perch in the distance, Naito watches closely, genuinely impressed that Jin can conjure two weapons simultaneously. He quietly explains to himself how demon blood can shape into pretty much anything the user imagines, though the form it takes is always influenced by their deepest trauma, preferences, or experiences. At the same time, Jin charges straight at the female Titan, climbing up her body using the spinning circular chainsaw like a crazy lumberjack. He tries to imitate Levi Ackerman's signature move by aiming for her neck, but the female Titan sacrifices an arm at the last second to shield herself. As Jin keeps up the relentless assault, Shiki desperately screams at his hand, begging it to make literally anything useful. He can't figure out why the hell his blood won't shape into a weapon when Jin does it so effortlessly, but suddenly it clicks. Jin only creates cutting tools because he's fixated on them, while even Homer's Titan was created out of something deeply personal. Shiki realizes he can form guns because he's always had an extreme passion for firearms, probably even more than the average American, and finally figures out how to control his powers. Back at the fight, Jin's having a rough time with a female Titan, who suddenly unleashes a deafening roar that completely damages his hearing. He staggers, losing his balance and feeling death creeping closer, while even Naito considers stepping in. But at that exact moment, Shiki steps forward, yelling that he'll handle things from here. He confidently aims a mighty rifle with a grenade launcher straight at the female Titan. Naito smirks in approval, impressed that Shiki finally got it right. Shiki smiles, practically vibrating with excitement to try out his awesome new weapon, but before he can fire, the female Titan charges at him again. He swiftly dodges, then fires a grenade directly at her, defeating her instantly in a spectacular explosion. Jin and Naito stand frozen in shock, staring wide-eyed at Shiki's incredible display of firepower. The Titan starts to fade, her broken fragments scattering everywhere as Homer collapses unconscious. At the same time, Jin is still standing there, utterly stunned by Shiki's insane firepower, when suddenly it begins raining blood. Turns out it's just the aftermath from Shiki's brutal attack suspended in the sky, quickly shifting into ordinary rain. Jin realizes, astonished, that Shiki didn't just obliterate the female titan. This guy straight up changed the freaking weather. Shiki, however, doesn't even register that. He immediately moves toward Homer, desperate to check if she's alright, but his vision suddenly blurs as his knees buckle beneath him, dropping him helplessly to the ground. Just then, Naito shows up, casually explaining that Shiki used a completely ridiculous amount of blood for that attack, leaving his body totally drained. Stubbornly, Shiki insists he can keep going, somehow managing to force himself to his feet, only to collapse again seconds later. Naito sarcastically calls him a wimp who can't even control his own powers, but secretly he's blown away, realizing Shiki's strength is way beyond anything he's ever seen. Naito warns him that losing too much blood could literally kill him, making Shiki instantly more concerned about Homer. Shiki urges Naito to go check on her first, worried she might have used up too much blood as well, and he's perfectly fine with being treated second. Naito genuinely didn't expect Shiki, who's practically dying himself, to care so deeply for someone else, but just as he's about to help, Jin suddenly launches a surprise attack. Thankfully, Naito's reflexes are sharp enough to block Jin's strike, quickly pushing him back. Jin then coldly tells him to stop wasting time on weak-ass losers, so Naito feels disgusted and demands to know what'll happen if Homer dies without emergency treatment. Jin waves it off, saying that's not his damn problem. Naito makes it crystal clear he's got zero tolerance for selfish bastards like Jin, but Jin casually brushes him off again, only wanting confirmation that he'll graduate if he kills Naito right here. Naito calmly assures Jin that's the truth, and that's all Jin needs to charge straight at Naito without hesitation. Naito effortlessly blocks Jin's blood chainsaw using his umbrella, crafted from a miracle material that makes it freaking indestructible. He quickly presses a button, releasing a thick smoke screen. Jin smirks confidently, convinced Naito's planning a sneak attack he can easily counter, but suddenly he's hit by rapid-fire bullets out of nowhere. Panicking, Jin immediately dives for cover behind a tree as Naito fires rubber bullets from his multipurpose umbrella, cheerfully explaining that while these bullets won't kill Jin, they'll sure as hell hurt. He even deliberately aimed at Jin's already injured hand earlier, just to maximize the pain. Jin quickly figures out that Naito plans to stay safely out of range, thinking he only has close combat skills. Unfortunately for Naito, Jin always has a few nasty tricks up his sleeve. He instantly bolts from behind the tree, skillfully dodging Naito's barrage of bullets while throwing razor-sharp blades straight at him. Naito effortlessly evades them, but is genuinely impressed that Jin has strategies to counter long-range fighters. Jin relentlessly continues his attacks, suddenly appearing mid-air behind Naito, convinced there's no way he can dodge this strike. But Naito casually tosses a bomb his way and Jin panics momentarily, only to realize it's another harmless smoke bomb. Thinking Naito's gonna hit him again from afar, Jin completely misses Naito dashing in from behind, delivering a brutal, spine-crushing punch. Naito coldly lectures Jin on being way too cocky and predictable in battle, leaving himself wide open to surprise attacks. Jin's badly injured and drained of strength, but stubbornly keeps struggling. Naito eventually flips his umbrella upside down, trapping Jin inside like a cage. Jin frantically tries breaking free, prompting Naito to mockingly ask if he's really that desperate to see his father. Jin freezes completely, demanding to know how Naito learned about that. Naito casually reveals he checked his records, learning a few dark secrets, including the fact Jin's father is actually a Momotarou. While every cell in Jin's body burns with rage hearing this, Shiki lies nearby, stunned to discover their pasts are so painfully similar. Overwhelmed by fury and hatred, Jin bitterly admits his dad is indeed a Momotarou, the heartless bastard who destroyed his entire life. His father slaughtered his family and then cruelly experimented on him, leaving permanent scars across his body. Jin vividly recalls surviving on garbage and pure hatred toward his dad, swearing he'll kill that monster himself even if it means dying in the process. Driven by blind rage, Jin suddenly gains an explosive burst of strength, violently breaking out of the umbrella cage. But before he can react, Naito swiftly grabs his face and slams him brutally into the ground, calling him an impulsive, reckless brat. Naito sternly tells Jin that dying while chasing revenge is utterly stupid, and he'll never fulfill his goal that way. He then urges Jin to live, to stay alive and fight another day, even if it means enduring humiliation and defeat, because that's the only real path toward achieving his dreams. Jin finally quits struggling, and Naito quickly contacts the school, requesting the nurse since he's got an injured student here. He calmly informs them that Homer has dropped out due to severe blood loss and Jin's been securely tied up. Meanwhile, Shiki's barely still standing, and Naito reminds him there's just about 6 minutes left on the clock. Tauntingly, he holds up one of the balls, giving Shiki a choice. Either chase him down to snatch it or frantically search for the other one and make it back to the school, all within 5 minutes. Shiki complains it's completely unfair, but knows he's got no damn choice except to play along. So Shiki instantly takes off, forcing Naito to chase him down to see what he's plotting. On the other hand, Jin sits silently, tied to a tree, when suddenly Shiki pops out from behind some bushes. Shiki approaches Jin, calmly offering to free him, but only if he'll agree to team up. Jin's jaw drops in disbelief at the offer, and Shiki bluntly explains that neither of them stands a chance against Naito solo, but together, they just might pull it off. Jin stubbornly refuses, claiming that being rescued by an idiot would totally shatter his pride. Shiki doesn't even bother arguing whether he's an idiot, instead calmly asking Jin if pride is honestly more important than his goals, because he's definitely not reaching those goals tied up here. Jin coldly asks why he even gives a damn, and Shiki quietly admits his own father was a Momotarou too. So Jin stares in stunned silence as Shiki pulls a classic Naruto, dramatically declaring that they're exactly the same. At the same time, Naito searches everywhere for Shiki, doubting he'd simply run back to school without a fight. Just then, he spots Shiki sprinting away, loudly cursing Jin, and immediately corners him. Shiki stops dead as soon as Naito lands in front of him, tauntingly waving the ball and reminding Shiki he's almost out of time. Shiki curses Jin internally, not because he's ungrateful, but because even after getting rescued, Jin still insisted on calling the shots. Suddenly, Jin bursts from above, lunging straight at Naito to grab the ball, but Naito easily sidesteps the attack. Jin smirks, revealing that was just a distraction. His real move is hurling a stone tied to a rope, instantly looping around Naito and trapping him securely. Shiki quickly grabs the rope's other end and both desperately pull with everything they've got. Naito plants his heels firmly into the ground, confident these exhausted brats don't have the stamina left to actually overpower him. Just then, Jin unleashes a blood blade straight at Naito, forcing him to dodge and lose his balance in the process. Shiki immediately takes advantage, sprinting towards him and knocking the ball from his hand. The ball lands perfectly near Jin, and Naito assumes Jin will try to run straight to the school, but he figures Shiki will surely fight him for it. So Naito plans to easily snatch it back during a squabble, but shockingly, Shiki tells Jin to grab the ball and run. Jin doesn't hesitate, immediately bolting off with it, while Shiki excitedly cheers him on like a proud parent at a soccer game. He proudly boasts to Naito that they've finally taken the ball, but Naito sarcastically reminds him that only the person who actually brings the ball back passes, and right now that's Jin, not him. Shiki's jaw drops, realizing he's just completely screwed himself over. Naito can't help but think Shiki's genuinely the dumbest guy he's ever met, acting first without even considering the consequences. Instantly regretting his decision, Shiki desperately screams at Jin to come back, but Jin's already too far gone. Jin confidently thinks he'll easily reach the school in time, but suddenly remembers he only made it this far because of Shiki's idiotic help. Grumbling internally, he decides he just can't leave that dumbass behind and abruptly turns back towards Shiki, who's utterly dumbfounded and asks Jin if he's as directionally challenged as freaking Zoro. Jin immediately snaps at Shiki to shut his mouth, bluntly saying the only reason he's doing this is that he refuses to owe his success to a total moron. He'd rather fail miserably and achieve his goals on his own. He firmly tosses Shiki the ball, ordering him to run straight to the academy. But just as they're about to exchange, a tiny pink creature suddenly races between them at lightning speed, freezing both in place. Naito instantly halts the test, warning them not to fight around Muku, their lightning-fast courier delivery pet. He explains that Muku only appears during critical emergencies, quickly activating the radio on its back to hear a frantic request for backup. The Kyoto branch is under attack by the Momotarou agency. Outside the test area, all the other students patiently await their turn, assuming Shiki and the others definitely bombed since they're already past the time limit. But just then, Naito returns with Shiki and Jin and Tao, urgently announcing the Kyoto branch desperately needs backup, so they're dropping the test immediately and heading straight there instead. They quickly board a boat bound for Kyoto, with the students nervously expressing mixed feelings about suddenly being thrown into an actual battlefield. But Naito firmly reassures them that they won't directly fight, they're only there as support for the real fighters. Shortly after, they reach Kyoto, and Naito guides them to the district around a well-known temple, saying the Oni agency headquarters rest directly beneath it. He then slipped the students inside a bland roadside diner that most people would pass without a glance, where his sinister old hostess beckoned them in. In the rear parlor, she slid back a concealed board and revealed a cramped stair dropping into the earth, the hidden route that would carry them to the base. At the same time, in another location, Tsubakiri, the captain of the Momotarou agency, has just ended killing a unit of Oni. He sneers that they're maggots playing soldier, and his vice captain Yomichi tells him he's gone overboard again. She gripes about the mess he made because cleaning it is going to be a damn headache, and Sobakiri replied that the sight of maggots makes his temper flare. He added that he would have preferred a female Oni, since females endure pain longer than males and therefore make tougher material for his experiments. Yomichi answered that the experiments were vile and that she despised them, especially the creature now shuffling toward them. Sobakiri tells her not to be mean to his favorite creation, a freaking chimera stitched from a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. He has named it Ugly, and that is the one detail Yomichi can actually agree with. Sobakiri says Ugly is a crucial research specimen as well as a loyal part of their anti-Oni bioweapons program. Yomichi says their job is to kill dangerous Oni and protect civilians, and you should focus on that rather than wasting time on creepy lab work. Sobakiri insists Oni blood is genuinely fascinating and he is doing his best to help in his own way. He argues that if they can learn to control Oni blood themselves, it will benefit the Momotarou agency massively. Even better, if its regenerative factor could be turned into a drug, they might end up wealthier than Elon Musk. Yomichi pointed out that Momotaro's already displays similar traits, but Sobakiri said experimenting on people is idiotic. And in his eyes, the Oni are maggots, so they should be used for trials because simply killing them is a waste of raw material. A scared young Oni overhears everything while tucked just around the bend, and he fights to stay perfectly silent. In the moment the two Momotarou agents' footsteps fade away from his spot, he exhales in shaky relief, but Sobakiri surprisingly appears beside him. Apparently he was just messing with his sorry ass. So of course the boy panics and Sobakiri decides to haul him to the lab. Yomichi says she will put the kid to sleep so he does not cause trouble, but as she tries to force him to sleep without anesthesia, a drop of blood splashes onto Sobakiri's coat. Yomichi understands immediately that this spells trouble, not for her but for the child. Sobakiri strides up and starts booting him like a heartless jerk. He says that although Oni blood fascinates him, it is filthy, and he will not tolerate it on his uniform. He then asks whether the kid's parents live nearby and whether they were among the group he just killed. When he gets no reply, he hoists the nearby Oni corpses and shoves them in front of the boy, asking if his parents are here. The kid is too terrified to speak, and of course, Sobakiri chooses to crush him under the bodies. Yomichi is sickened by it because out of all the Momotarou abilities she has seen, Sobakiri's is the most twisted. The black haze that leaks from their bodies is actually a special blood-borne bacteria, and the Momotarou can shape it into weapons. But Sobakiri can use that bacteria to control corpses, and she still cannot get used to that shit show. Before long, he finishes the boy off, then tells Ugly to eat the giant Oni dumpling while they move on to hunt more maggots. Elsewhere, Jin and the other students walk a broad tunnel, and Naito explains that several shops in this area connect to this passage that leads to their base. They soon reach a gate that opens into the space right beneath the Ryudadera temple, built like a traditional Japanese house. The students can hardly believe their eyes as Naito tells them this is the Kyoto Division headquarters of the Oni agency. Right then, a doctor steps out of a room grumbling about the mountain of tasks on his plate, but his mood flips the instant he spots Naito, and he greets him all sunshine and then fusses with his hair when he clocks the massive blonde nearby. He tries a cheesy greeting, but she shuts him down immediately. But this simp's ego hardly cracks, since he's well practiced at rejection. Shin asks who this goofball is, and Naito introduces him as Kyuya, commander of the support unit at the Kyoto base. Kyuya adds that he and Naito were classmates at the academy, but Naito is in no mood for small talk. He decides to head to the front lines right now, and Jin asks to tag along as well. The other students wanting to, preferring that over babysitting a weirdo like Kyuya, but Naito is not hearing it. He tells Kyuya to put these brats to use however he likes before heading out, and right then the nurse orders Kyuya back inside to do his job. She sees the academy kids too and tells them to change right away because they need every pair of hands. They suit up as assistant nurses in a hurry and head to the improvised ward where dozens of wounded Oni are crying in pain. One has just been rushed in, missing both legs along with other life-threatening damage. Shiki is horrified at the sight, and the nurse says he has at most 3 minutes left to live at this pace. But Kyuya simply smiles and says they won't let him die, and Shiki snaps at him to stop tossing out empty promises. Kyuya praises his blunt compassion, but says he is kind of a big deal here, then decides to show the kids how real support work is done. Elsewhere, Sobakiri and Yomichi have just finished dismantling the captain and vice captain of another squad. The remaining Oni are petrified, and Sobakiri is annoyed he has to handle another batch of nobodies when he was hoping for a real challenge. His wish gets granted immediately as Naito arrives and snaps his ability on. Sobakiri is pleased to see him, but Naito does not let that last, instantly attacking with his killer move. The Oni cheer at Naito's arrival, thinking their savior has shown up, but Tsubakuri walks out untouched because the corpses of the Oni captain and vice captain served as his meat shields. It then appears that he already knows Naito, and he talks to him like they are old buddies. He asks what Naito is doing in Kyoto, since this is not his turf. He says he has heard of a spot where the Oni and Kyoto forces are gathering, and if he wipes that place off the map, the whole problem disappears. Naito holds a poker face and says he does not know anything about it, and Tsubakuri responds that if even Naito claims the place is not true, he will drop it. He then says he will go sightseeing near the Great Temple instead, and Naito feels a jolt of panic on the inside because Tsubakuri's instincts are razor sharp. So he decides to eliminate him right here and gets ready to fight for real. Back at the base, Kyoya plugs several bloodlines into his own body, and Shiki asks if they should not be giving that blood to the wounded instead. The head nurse snaps at him to be quiet and watches Kyoya walks over to the worst case in the room. He asks the patient to choose between hands or feet because he cannot regrow both right away. The man gathers what strength he has left and says he wants his arms so he can hold his children again. Kyoya promises he will make that happen, but warns the operation will be like nightmare. He then slices open his wrist and lets his blood flow into the man's mouth, saying it multiplies a normal Oni's healing power many times over. The effect hits fast and the patient starts screaming, so the nurse orders the students to pin him down. Shiki and the others follow her lead, and she sends more students to fetch additional blood from the next room. Moments later, something pushes against the bandages on the man's arms, and Shiki recoils when he sees shapes that look like a freaking fingers trying to break through. The rest of the students hurry back, and then the man suddenly grows new arms. Even the deep burns across his chest seal up until the skin looks whole again. Shiki then rushes to Kyoya and asks if they can restore the man's legs too. Kyoya says yes, but they have to do it in stages with small doses of his blood, since the patient has already taken a lot. Giving him more right now could trigger antibodies that would fight it off. Kyoya then returns to the patient and tells him he is stepping out of the combat unit from now on, but he can move into the support division to keep helping people, and adds that with proper prosthetics, you will be back playing with your kids soon, and the man's eyes fill with tears the moment he hears it. Then Kyoya faces the students and warns that one day any of them could be the one in this bed. He says he understands chasing glory and aura farming that only happens on the front lines, but he reminds them that the frontliners stand fearless because someone guards their backs, and that someone is the support team. Shiki and a couple of classmates are genuinely impressed now, and they tell him they are ready to pitch in however he needs. Kyoya says he needs Shiki for something else, and leads him to a withdrawn girl named Mai, who was brought in yesterday after the Momotarou agency attacked her. Her parents are still missing, and Kyoya wants to lean on Shiki's kindness to calm her and help her breathe again. Shiki accepts and starts a quiet conversation, and little by little she opens up. He asks about school, and she says she never attended, as the idiot wonders if she might be a bad boy like him. The support team rolls in bodies from the battlefield, and among them are Mei's parents. She breaks down the instant she sees them, and Kyoya admits scenes like this still gut him no matter how often he sees them. At the same time, Tsubakuri tells Naito he seeded several Oni corpses with his bacteria, knowing the support crew will haul them to base for a proper funeral, and from there he can remote control the bodies and sabotage the facility. Naito reels at the reveal, and Tsubakuri decides to test whether the plan has taken hold. He reanimates Mei's father while Shiki and Kyoya are distracted, and she lights up, convinced he is alive. But under Tsubakuri's command, the corpse clamps a hand around her throat, and Shiki and Kyoya catch it fast. Kyoya recognizes Tsubakuri's trick and immediately orders Shiki to cover Mei's eyes. Shiki obeys, and Kyoya drives two slim blades into the man's brain, dropping the body inert. When Shiki lets her look, Mei sobs at what became of her dad, and Kyoya realizes there could be more puppeted corpses here, just like Mei's father. In that instant, Mei's mother seizes Shiki from behind, crushing his throat. Kyoya spots it and lunges to help, but before he can reach them, 3 more Oni zombies clamp onto him from the rear and pin him in place. At the same time, nurses hauling corpses toward the disposal unit watch in horror as the bodies jolt awake and lash out. Moments later, a flood of Oni zombies surges through the doorway into the patient room. They pounce on the patients sprawled across the floor, and the nurses swing whatever they can grab to fight back. In the adjoining room, Mei sobs her heart out, begging her mother to stop strangling Shiki. But her mother has already become a zombie, and Shiki knows she is beyond saving. Kyoya then aches to help, yet the 3 Oni blocking him refuse to give an inch. Before Shiki blacks out, he slowly reaches for a pistol. He remembers the ferry ride to this place when Naito handed it to him for self-defense, since Shiki still could not fully control his blood. Back then, he was not thinking about protection at all. He was just ecstatic to hold a real firearm instead of a replica. Naito had explained the pistol was loaded with cartridges infused with Shiki's blood, which strike far harder than ordinary rounds. With so few bullets, Naito told him to save them for moments that truly mattered. Shiki then realizes firing on Mei's mother is his only shot at surviving, so he pulls Mei into his chest to shield her view, then puts a freaking bullet through her mother's head. Then he sucks in a hard breath as relief washes over him. At the same time, Kyuya is still pinned beneath the Oni zombies, but Shiki frees him by placing headshots on all three, dropping them immediately. Kyuya heaves the pile of corpses off himself and glances over at Shiki. The two haul each other upright, and Kyuya says he will get the patients to safety while Shiki takes point against the Oni zombies in the main hall. Elsewhere, the patients are seconds from being torn apart until Ikari bursts in and saves them at the last possible moment, driving punches straight into zombie faces. The other students jump into the brawl and defend themselves. After a short stretch, they notice something odd. No matter how many hits they land, the zombies refuse to die. Jin wears a worried look, clearly unsure what to do next. But at that point, Shiki shouts, telling everyone the only way to drop the zombies is by hitting their heads, and blows to anything else will not finish them. On cue, Jin triggers his Eclipse technique, flinging 3 blood shurikens straight at the zombies' skulls. As Shiki promised, they collapse at once, dead for good. Seeing that the rest are convinced this is the way to fight. With that decided, Kyuya orders the support unit to prioritize evacuating patients and preventing further deaths. Shiki continues shooting the zombies with his handgun, cutting down several at a time, and the task turns his stomach because mowing through so many corpses feels bad. A few students then declare they will help with the evacuation, but Ikari snaps that they do not need to announce it, just move. They take the hint and peel off, while Ikari stays behind and holds the line against the undead. At the same time, Shiki grows increasingly unsettled. Each target he shoots was once someone dear to someone. These were innocent people, yet he's pumping rounds into them even though the true enemy is the Momotarou, so thinking about it makes his blood boil. Kyuya then directs the remaining nurses to get every patient to safety while Shiki and the others keep the zombies contained. Elsewhere, Tsubakiri and Naito are about to clash. Naito rushes first, but Tsubakiri stuffs the lane with 3 Oni zombies as a living shield. Naito stays calm until Tsubakiri's pet erupts from nowhere and lunges at him. Naito slips aside at the last possible instant, and the lunge rips into the 3 Oni instead, spattering blood across the wall. Naito regards the mess with a cold, steady stare, and Tsubakiri smirks and says he ought to be pleased since the Oni zombies are being culled. After that, Naito tells the others to fall back to the evacuation point while he handles Tsubakiri, but Tsubakiri has no intention of letting anyone go. He calls for Yomaji, and she strolls ahead. Then with her black bacteria, she forms a cage that catches Naito and the others inside. Meigo then asks what they hope to accomplish. Tsubakiri explains that with them contained, he can keep messing around in their hideout as long as he likes. He adds that the barrier is strong enough that they cannot break out unless Yomaji permits it. Tsubakiri then guesses Meigo thinks he does not know the hideout's location, so he reveals he planted transmitters on every corpse he left behind. And by tracing those signals, he learned their hideout sits beneath Irunadera. Naito's composure cracks when he realizes Tsubakiri has figured out where they are. Tsubakiri starts walking away and flashes a signal to Yomaji, and Yomaji answers by allowing the ugly to slip through the barrier. Naito and the others keep their guard up, unsure what is about to unfold. As Tsubakiri continues forward, he snaps his fingers and the ugly begins to bulge. The Oni ages recoil in disgust, while Naito watches with cool curiosity, wondering what will follow. The creature starts to shine, and it is obvious it is going to detonate, so Naito yells for everyone to take cover. The explosion is so strong that it wipes out everything within a 100-meter radius. Tsubakiri watches the fireball, dissatisfied that it wasn't more forceful, so he says that he will improve it next time. Yomaji proposes checking for survivors, but Tsubakiri says there is no point. No one could live through that, and besides, he just laundered his uniform and doesn't want it stained. And moments after, we see Naito lying on the ground, his body covered in burns and scars. Back at headquarters, Shiki puts a bullet through the last Oni zombie's skull and exhales in relief, glad it is finally done. Kyuya then announces they have moved the patients to the main hall, and says it is thanks to everyone being here, so he offers deep thanks. At the same time, Mei stands firm while her mother and father lie dead on the ground with bullet holes in their skulls. Kyuya notices and feels sad for her, so he walks over and tells her he is sorry she had to endure that. Shiki apologizes as well, admitting he was the one who shot her mom in her forehead. He remembers the moment and feels lingering regret, but to his shock, Mei says it's alright. She spent her life hiding, never had school or a normal day, always expecting this moment to come, but she just didn't know when. She even manages a thin smile for Shiki, telling him not to worry. The calm hits Shiki like ice water because Mei just watched her parents die, and all she can say is that it is alright. This shit makes Shiki grip his fists in anger as his own childhood flashes back. When he was small, he idolized superheroes, and Momotarou are supposed to be that world's heroes, so why do they butcher innocence just for having Oni blood? Overcome by feeling, he wraps Mai in his arms and says that because of this, he'll be the villain so he can tear down the so-called heroes. He holds her close, telling Mai not to worry because he will make a world where they can all smile again, and everyone else watches in silence, while Mai's eyes shake with a lot of feeling. Not long after, Jin and Kyuya emerge from the agency through the buried tunnel. Kyuya proposes they recover their fallen, saying he will take Jin to the crematory and start ferrying the remains there. Back at headquarters, the rest are left with corpse cleanup, and I carried bristles at the assignment. Griping that Kyuya dumped the dirty work on them, he whirls around, spots Juji standing still, and snaps at him to quit idling. Juji shoots back that he is not slacking. The site was attacked moments ago, which means the perimeter is unsafe, so someone needs to keep watch. His talent is built for reconnaissance, so he bites his thumb, lets a bead of blood hit the floor, and a wide crimson sonar sigil unfurls under their boots. It is his blood eclipse release, and Ikari flinches at the sight, stunned by the scale of it. Juji explains that his blood can register any living being within 5 kilometers of where it lands, and he can even flag whether the target is Momotarou. The field sweeps the area, but at first nothing pings. He notes the thermal gain is low, which makes it harder to resolve the target's exact outline or power level. Then the lattice chirps, a contact lights up, and Juji's eyes jump at the reading. At the same time, over in the Mizumoto area, Tsubakiri and Yomagi have already pinpointed the covert tunnel and even silenced the kind old woman guarding it. Tsubakiri is on the line with his aide, instructing him to deploy several ugly units to the coordinates he relays. He also requests the special ugly he has been holding back for a significant operation. And before ending the call, he also asks for the high-risk Oni dossier as a reference. Afterward, he tells Yomagi that since Naito has already appeared here, something major is going on in this place. Yomagi gestures toward the yawning tunnel mouth ahead of them. She does not know who or what is inside, so she proposes flooding it with toxic gas. Tsubakiri weighs it, agrees it sounds sensible, then abruptly overturns the plan and decides to enter the passage himself. He also tells Yomagi that before extinguishing any Oni they encounter, they should ask their names. Yomiji questions why, and Tsubakiri explains that if they run into someone named Shiki, he wants him taken alive, not killed. She asks what makes him different, and Tsubakiri replies that Shiki is an outlier and different from the rest. And for that reason, he intends to bring Shiki back to the lab for examination. With that settled, the two of them step into the tunnel, planning on finishing all the Oni for good. This was the end of episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.
Take you,